In the dim, flickering glow of a rundown high school hallway, where lockers slammed like thunderclaps and whispers carried the weight of unspoken threats, a group of hardened bullies cornered the new teacher. Their leader, a towering senior named Jax, sneered down at the unassuming man, his fists clenched as the others circled like wolves. "You're done here, newbie," Jax growled, shoving him against the cold metal. But in that frozen instant, as the clock ticked toward chaos, the teacher's eyes shifted. From wary resignation to a steel, hard focus that sent a chill through the air. What happened next unfolded in a blur of motion, a revelation that would shatter their world in under a minute, leaving them on their knees, begging for mercy they never thought they'd need. The story began weeks earlier, in the heart of a forgotten industrial town in the American Midwest, where the steel mills had long since rusted into silence, and the local high school stood as a battleground for lost dreams and simmering rage. Lincoln High was no ordinary institution. It was a fortress of faded glory, its brick walls etched with graffiti that told tales of rebellion and despair. The air inside carried the faint scent of chalk dust mixed with the metallic tang of teenage angst, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry hornets, casting long shadows that seemed to swallow the hopes of anyone who dared to teach there. Into this arena stepped Harlan Reed, the new history teacher, a man in his mid-40s with a quiet demeanor that belied the storms he had weathered. He arrived on a crisp autumn morning, the leaves crunching under his polished shoes as he parked his modest sedan in the faculty lot. Dressed in a simple button-down shirt and khakis, Harlan carried a worn leather briefcase that had seen better days, its edges frayed from years of travel. His face was lined with subtle scars, faint reminders of a life far removed from lesson plans and grading papers. But they were easy to overlook amid his gentle smile and unassuming posture. The principal, Mrs. Evelyn Grant, a no-nonsense woman with graying hair pulled into a tight bun, greeted him in her cluttered office. "Mr. Reed, we're glad to have you," she said, her voice laced with a wariness that spoke volumes. "But I won't sugarcoat it. This place is tough. The kids, some of them have been through hell. And a few. They're the ones dishing it out." Harlan nodded, his blue eyes steady. "I've faced worse," he replied softly, though he offered no details. Little did she know Harlan's worse included the deserts of Iraq and the mountains of Afghanistan, where he had served as a Green Beret in the U.S. Army Special Forces. But that chapter of his life was buried deep, a secret he guarded like a fragile artifact, emerging only in nightmares that woke him in sweat-soaked sheets. As Harlan settled into his classroom, room 212, the space felt like a relic from another era. Desks were scarred with carvings of initials and crude drawings, the blackboard smeared with half-erased equations from the previous teacher, who had fled after a particularly brutal semester. He arranged his books on the shelf. Tomes on World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, and ancient civilizations, each one a portal to the lessons he hoped to impart. But from the moment the bell rang and students filed in, Harlan sensed the undercurrent of hostility. The class was a mix of apathy and defiance, girls scrolling through phones under their desks, boys slouched with hoodies pulled low over furrowed brows. At the back sat the core of the trouble, the self-proclaimed Kings of Lincoln, a gang of 5 seniors led by Jax Harlan, no relation to the teacher but a cruel twist of fate in naming. Jax was built like a linebacker, his broad shoulders straining against a Letterman jacket adorned with patches from sports he dominated through intimidation rather than skill. Flanking him were Rico, a wary kid with a quick temper and a history of suspensions, Mia, the sharp-tongued girl who orchestrated pranks with surgical precision, Derek, the muscle who followed orders without question, and Tyler, the tech-savvy one who filmed their exploits for social media glory. They eyed Harlan like prey, whispering bets on how long he'd last. "Look at this guy," Jax muttered, loud enough for the front row to hear. "Bet he cries by lunch." Harlan ignored the jabs, launching into his first lesson on the American Revolution. "History isn't just dates and names," he said, his voice calm and measured. "It's about people. Ordinary folks who stood up when it mattered." But as he spoke, a paper wad sailed through the air, striking his shoulder. Laughter erupted, and Harlan paused, his jaw tightening imperceptibly. He picked it up, unfolded it to reveal a crude drawing, and simply said, "Interesting perspective. Let's discuss rebellion instead." The class quieted, but the seed of conflict was planted. Days turned into a relentless grind, each one layering tension like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Harlan's mornings began with a ritual of quiet reflection in his small apartment on the edge of town. A modest one-bedroom where the walls were bare save for a single framed photo of his old unit, their faces grim under desert camo. He sipped black coffee, staring out at the gray skyline, reminding himself why he'd chosen this path. After 2 decades in the military, Harlan had retired with honors, but the transition to civilian life had been a minefield. PTSD lingered like a shadow, manifesting in hypervigilance and a reluctance to form bonds. Teaching was his redemption, a way to channel his experiences into shaping young minds, to prevent them from the paths of violence he knew too well. But at Lincoln High, redemption felt distant. The Bullies campaign started subtly whispers in the halls. Anonymous notes slipped into his briefcase labeling him weak or loser. Harlan brushed them off, focusing on the few students who engaged. Like young Sarah, a bright sophomore whose eyes lit up during discussions on civil liberties, Or Marcus, a quiet boy from a broken home who lingered after class for extra help. These moments fueled him, small victories amid the brewing war. Yet the pranks escalated. One afternoon, as Harlan entered his classroom, he found his desk overturned, papers scattered like fallen leaves. The air reeked of spray paint, and on the blackboard, in bold red letters, read, "Get out, or else." The students filed in, feigning innocence, but Jax's smirk betrayed them. Harlan righted the desk without a word, his hands steady despite the rage simmering beneath. "Today," he announced, "we'll talk about resilience, the kind that turns victims into victors." His voice carried a subtle edge, a hint of the command presence that had once led men through firefights, but the bullies saw only vulnerability. The atmosphere in the school thickened with each passing day, the hallways buzzing with rumors of the new teacher's impending breakdown. Teachers in the lounge exchanged sympathetic glances over lukewarm coffee, sharing stories of predecessors who had cracked under similar pressure. "Poor guy doesn't stand a chance," murmured Ms. Lopez, the English teacher, her voice tinged with resignation. "Those kids are animals." But Harlan pressed on, his lessons infused with passion that occasionally pierced the veil of indifference. He shared tales of unsung heroes, soldiers who held lines against impossible odds, activists who faced down mobs with unyielding courage. Unbeknownst to his students, these stories drawn from his own life, veiled in generality to protect his secrets. One evening, after a particularly grueling day where Rico had accidentally spilled soda on his lesson plans, Harlan sat in his car, gripping the steering, his knuckles whitened. Flashbacks flickered, the crack of gunfire in a dusty village, the weight of a fallen comrade in his arms. He breathed deeply, employing the techniques learned in therapy sessions, grounding himself in the present. "This isn't war," he whispered to himself. "These are kids." But the line between past and present blurred as the harassment intensified. Mia orchestrated a social media blitz, posting edited photos of Harlan looking foolish, captioned with mocking hashtags like "The Weak Teacher Wednesday." Views climbed, likes poured in from peers, fueling the bullies' egos. Derek and Tyler took it further, tampering with his classroom projector to display embarrassing memes during a parent-teacher conference. Laughter echoed through the auditorium, parents shifting uncomfortably as Harlan calmly rebooted the system. "Technical difficulties," he said with a forced smile, but inside the pressure built like a coiled spring. As autumn leaves gave way to the first flurries of winter, the conflict reached a boiling point. The school gym, with its echoing hardwood floors and banners from long-forgotten championships, became the stage for a pivotal confrontation. It was during a mandatory assembly on bullying prevention, ironic given the circumstances, that the Kings decided to make their move. Harlan had been asked to speak, sharing insights on how history teaches us to rise above aggression. As he stood at the podium, his notes in hand, Jax signaled to his crew. Rico slipped out, returning moments later with a bucket of slimy cafeteria leftovers, which they dumped over Harlan from the balcony above. The auditorium erupted in chaos, gasps, laughter, shouts, as the mess dripped down his shirt, the stench filling the air. Harlan stood there, frozen for a heartbeat, the humiliation washing over him like a tidal wave. But in that moment, something shifted. His eyes, usually soft, hardened with a resolve forged in combat zones. He wiped his face slowly, his movements deliberate, and addressed the crowd. "This," he said, his voice booming with unexpected authority, "is what weakness looks like, attacking from the shadows." The laughter died, replaced by an uneasy silence. Jax, from his seat, yelled back, "You're the weak one, old man." But Harlan's gaze locked on him, a silent challenge that sent a ripple through the group. That night, alone in his apartment, Harlan paced the floor, the incident replaying in his mind. He knew escalation was inevitable, the bullies wouldn't stop until they broke him. But breaking Harlan Reed wasn't so simple. His military training had instilled a discipline that turned pain into power, fear into focus. He decided then to endure a little longer, to let them underestimate him until the moment was right. The turning point came on a frigid December afternoon, the kind where breath hung in the air like ghosts and the sun dipped low, casting elongated shadows across the snow-dusted parking lot. Harlan had stayed late, grading papers in his classroom, the only light from his desk lacking the gathering dusk. Footsteps echoed in the hall, multiple sets, purposeful and heavy. The door burst open, and in stormed the Kings, Jax at the forefront, his face twisted in rage. "Time's up, Teach," he snarled, cracking his knuckles. "You've been ignoring us too long. Now you're gonna pay." Rico blocked door, Maya filmed on her phone, Derek and Tyler flanking Jax like enforcers. They advanced, knocking over desks with deliberate crashes, the noise amplifying the menace. Harlan rose slowly from his chair, his heart rate steady despite the adrenaline surge. "You don't want this," he warned, his tone low and even. Jax laughed, shoving him hard against the wall. "What are you gonna do?" cried the principal. The others closed in, fists raised, the air thick with impending violence. Time seemed to slow, the clock on the wall ticking audibly, second by second. Harlan's mind flashed to his training: assess, adapt, overcome. In that instant, the mild-mannered teacher vanished, replaced by the warrior he had once been. What unfolded next was a masterclass in controlled precision, a symphony of motion that lasted exactly 60 seconds. At zero, Jax lunged with a wild haymaker. Harlan sidestepped effortlessly, his body moving with the fluidity of years in special ops. 10 seconds he grabbed Jax's arm, twisting it into a joint lock that dropped the bully to one knee with a yelp of pain. Rico charged from the door, but Harlan pivoted, delivering a swift, non-lethal strike to the solar plexus that left him gasping on the floor. 20 seconds Mia dropped her phone in shock, scrambling for it, but Harlan was already on Derek, disarming a makeshift weapon, a metal ruler, with a disarm technique honed in close quarters combat. 30 seconds Tyler swung desperately, but Harlan deflected, sweeping his legs out from under him in a move that echoed judo drills from his army days. 40 seconds the group, now scattered and stunned, realized their error. Jax, clutching his arm, looked up with wide eyes. Who are you? 50 seconds Harlan stood amid the fallen, his breathing even not a hair out of place. I'm the man who survived wars you can't imagine, he said, his voice resonant with authority. And I'm here to teach you that strength isn't in hurting others. It's in choosing not to. 60 seconds the bullies, faces pale with a mix of fear and awe, knelt in defeat. Please, Jax whimpered, tears streaking his cheeks. We're sorry. Forgive us. Begging echoed in the room, a chorus of regret that shattered their facade of invincibility. In the aftermath, the school transformed. Principal Grant, alerted by the commotion, arrived to find the scene Harlan calm, the bullies subdued and contrite. Investigations followed, but Harlan advocated for mercy. Suspensions instead of expulsions, coupled with mandatory counseling. His secret past emerged in whispers: the Green Beret who had led missions in hostile territories, earning medals for valor before retiring to heal invisible wounds. The revelation redefined him in the eyes of students and staff alike. Jax and his crew, humbled, sought him out for guidance. Jax, in particular, confided in Harlan about his own abusive home, the anger that fueled his bullying. I thought being tough meant being mean, he admitted one afternoon in the empty classroom. Harlan nodded, sharing fragments of his story: the loss of brothers, in arms, the weight of survival. Toughness is facing your demons, he replied, and turning them into drive. The Kings disbanded, redirecting their energy. Rico joined the track team, channeling his speed. Mia started a school vlog on positive stories. Derek volunteered at a local shelter. Tyler coded apps for education. Sarah and Marcus, inspired, formed a history club under Harlan's mentorship. The school halls, once echoing with dread, now buzzed with purpose. Harlan found peace, his nightmares fading as he forged bonds that mended his soul. Lincoln High became a beacon of redemption, a testament to the power of hidden strength. As the credits roll on this tale of transformation, consider this, dear viewer. Have you ever underestimated someone, only to discover their unbreakable spirit? Or faced bullies in your own life, wondering if justice would prevail? Share your stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you've overcome adversity. If this cinematic journey left you inspired, hit that like button, share it with a friend who needs a dose of heroism, and subscribe for more gripping narratives of military might, justice served, and redemption earned. Until next time, remember, true strength lies not in breaking others, but in building them up.